Have you ever wondered why Canada and the United States feel almost like siblings? Not strangers, not distant cousins, but two countries that look different on paper, yet behave so much alike in everyday life. The food, the accents, the way people dress, even the way they think about success, it all feels strangely familiar. And sometimes you might even ask yourself, is Canada just America with colder weather? Stay with me in this video because what you are about to hear will open your eyes in a simple way. Nothing complicated, just clear explanations that show why these two countries are so closely connected. By the end, you may never look at the Canada-US relationship the same way again. Let's start from the beginning. To understand why Canadians seem so much like Americans, we need to step back a little and look at how both countries were shaped. Countries don't just become what they are overnight. They are shaped by history, by the people who settled there, and by the systems they built over time. Canada and the United States share a long and connected past. In fact, both started as colonies of European powers. The United States was mainly influenced by Britain, while Canada had both British and French influence. Over time, both grew into independent nations, but they did not grow apart in complete isolation. Instead, they kept influencing each other in ways that still show today. There is also something very important we cannot ignore. These two countries share one of the longest peaceful borders in the world. That alone has allowed constant movement of people, ideas, goods, and culture for hundreds of years. When people move back and forth so freely, similarities are almost guaranteed. So when we talk about why Canadians feel so much like Americans, we are really talking about shared history, shared space, and shared daily influence. Now let's go deeper into the first reason. Number one, their shared colonial history, British and French influence. If you go far back in time, before Canada and the United States even existed as countries, both lands were controlled by European powers. This is one of the strongest reasons they ended up with similar systems and ways of life. The United States was mainly shaped by British colonies that eventually broke away after the American Revolution. Canada, on the other hand, stayed under British rule for much longer, while also carrying strong French influence, especially in places like Quebec. Now here is where it gets interesting. Even though the United States became independent earlier, both countries still kept many of the same foundations. They both adopted systems based on British common law. That means their legal systems, court structures, and even ideas about justice are built on similar principles. You also see this in government style. Both countries use democratic systems where leaders are elected by the people. The idea of individual rights, freedom of speech, and personal liberty is very strong in both places. These ideas did not come from nowhere. They were passed down from their colonial roots. Even the way institutions are built, like schools, courts, and local governments, has similar structure. Over time, these systems develop their own small differences, but the foundation remains almost the same. So when people say Canadians and Americans are alike, part of that answer is buried deep in history. They were shaped by similar hands, even if they later walked slightly different paths. Number two, geographic proximity and border influence. Another major reason Canada and the United States feel so similar is simply because they are neighbors. And not just any neighbors, but the closest kind you can imagine. They share the longest undefended border in the world. That means people, goods, and services move across very easily. In many areas along the border, you will find towns where families live on one side and work or shop on the other. In daily life, that border sometimes feels invisible. Because of this closeness, there has been constant interaction for generations. Americans visit Canada for tourism, shopping, and even relocation, while Canadians do the same in reverse. Over time, this movement naturally blends habits and lifestyles. Think about it this way. If two families live next door to each other for decades, they will eventually start to share habits. Maybe they watch the same shows, eat similar meals, or even talk in similar ways. That is exactly what has happened between these two countries, but on a much larger scale. Trade also plays a huge role here. Businesses operate across both sides. Products made in the United States are sold in Canada every day, and Canadian goods also flow into American markets. This constant exchange means people are exposed to the same brands, the same products, and often the same way of life. So geography has done something very powerful here. It has kept both countries in close contact for centuries, and that closeness has naturally created similarities in culture, behavior, and even mindset. Number 3, cultural exchange through media and entertainment. If there is one area where the similarities between Canada and the United States become very obvious, it is entertainment. American media is everywhere in Canada. Movies, TV shows, music, and online content from the United States dominate Canadian screens just like they do in the US itself. This means Canadians grow up watching the same stories, hearing the same music, and following the same celebrities. Think about Hollywood. It is not just an American industry anymore. It is a global machine, and Canada is one of its biggest audiences. Many Canadians know American actors and influencers just as well as their own local figures. Over time, this creates shared cultural references. People laugh at the same jokes, follow the same trends, and even speak in similar slang. But it does not stop there. The influence also moves in the other direction, although on a smaller scale. Some Canadian artists, actors, and creators become popular in the United States as well. This back and forth flow keeps the cultural line between them very thin. Television is another big factor. Many Canadian households subscribe to American channels or streaming services, so whether it is sports, news, reality shows, or movies, both audiences are often consuming the same content at the same time. This shared media environment slowly shapes behavior. People begin to dress similarly, speak similarly, and even think about lifestyle in similar ways. When you constantly watch the same type of content, it starts to influence how you see the world. So in many ways, media has acted like a bridge between the two countries. It has blended entertainment, ideas, and even identity, making Canadians and Americans feel more alike than different in everyday life. Number 4, economic interdependence. One of the most important reasons Canadians and Americans are so alike is because their economies are deeply intertwined. The United States and Canada have a trade relationship that is one of the largest in the world, and it's a partnership that stretches across every aspect of life, from food to technology to services. When you look at the economy, it's easy to see how the two countries depend on each other. The United States is Canada's largest trading partner, and Canada is the US's second largest trading partner. In fact, more than $2 billion in goods and services cross the US-Canada border every day. That means the two nations are not just neighbors, but business partners in nearly everything. Both countries share similar industries, from manufacturing to agriculture to tech. A company in one country may rely on parts or materials from the other country to complete its products. For example, a car made in the US might have parts manufactured in Canada. This kind of cross-border business leads to a constant exchange of ideas, products, and services. You also see similar consumer markets. Canadians often buy American brands like Apple, Nike, or Coca-Cola, and the influence goes both ways. Canadian companies like Tim Hortons and Lululemon are popular in the United States. These shared brands and consumer choices connect both nations at a cultural level, creating similar lifestyles and tastes. Economic cooperation has also led to shared business practices and structures. Both countries have free market economies that operate similarly, with a strong focus on capitalism and individual entrepreneurship. The economies are highly integrated, and businesses in both countries rely on the smooth flow of goods and services across the border. So when you think about it, the economies of both countries are like two pieces of the same puzzle, and their constant interaction has helped shape not only their economic landscapes, but also their cultural identities. Number 5, language and communication similarities. At first glance, Canada and the United States may seem like two different countries because Canada has both French and English as official languages, and the US has English as its main language. But if you look closer, you'll see how much the two share when it comes to language and communication. English is the dominant language in both countries, and because of this, you'll hear the same words, phrases, and expressions in everyday conversations across both borders. The accent may differ a little. Canadians are known for the A and the distinct pronunciation of certain vowels, but for the most part, you won't have trouble understanding each other. The language is almost the same, and this makes communication easy between people from both countries. It's not just about the words either. The way people communicate in Canada and the US is often very similar. Both countries value directness, yet politeness, in conversation. Whether it's in business, social situations, or casual conversations, the approach to communication leans toward being open, friendly, and straightforward. Another similarity in communication is the slang used. You'll often hear Canadian and American slang terms being used interchangeably. Words like dude, awesome, and cool are common on both sides of the border. The media, especially movies, music, and social media, plays a big role in spreading these expressions, making it harder to distinguish a Canadian way of speaking from an American one. The shared language and communication styles help bridge the gap between the two countries, making it feel like people are speaking the same cultural language, even if they live in different places. Number 6, lifestyle and consumer culture. When it comes to lifestyle, Canada and the United States have more in common than one might think. Both countries are built around similar values: individualism, opportunity, and the pursuit of happiness. The way people live, the kinds of things they buy, and the way they approach leisure and work all feel very similar, which is why it's often hard to tell one country's lifestyle from the other. One area where you see these similarities most clearly is in consumer culture. Canadians and Americans tend to shop in the same stores, buy the same products, and even enjoy the same hobbies. Major retail chains like Walmart, Target, and Costco are found in both countries, and they sell many of the same products, from clothes to groceries to electronics. The shopping experience is nearly identical, with the same marketing techniques and advertising strategies influencing both populations. Both countries have also embraced a similar work-hard mentality. People in both Canada and the US tend to work long hours and value their careers, often striving for the same goals: financial stability, home ownership, and a good quality of life. This common pursuit leads to similar habits, from setting up retirement plans to seeking ways to improve work-life balance. In terms of leisure, you'll find that Canadians and Americans share a love for sports, with hockey, baseball, and basketball being top favorites in both countries. You also see similar outdoor activities, such as hiking, camping, and barbecuing. The idea of weekend get-togethers, family gatherings, and community events is something people on both sides of the border take seriously. In terms of food, both countries have adopted a love for fast food chains like McDonald's and Subway, along with a growing trend of health-conscious choices. The popularity of smoothies, protein bars, and organic products is just as high in Canada as it is in the US. This shared lifestyle and consumer culture reinforce the idea that Canadians and Americans are more alike than different, especially when it comes to daily habits, products, and values. Despite some regional differences, the fundamental approach to living in both countries aligns closely. Number 7, education, politics, and institutions. One of the most interesting ways Canada and the United States are alike is through their education systems and political structures. Both countries are deeply democratic, emphasizing education, freedom, and civic participation. While there are some key differences, the core principles of how each country operates are strikingly similar. Let's start with education. Both Canada and the US place a high value on accessible education, from kindergarten through to university. The structure of schooling in both nations follows a similar model. Primary, secondary, and post-secondary education are all essential parts of the system. Universities in both countries attract students from around the world, with many students choosing to cross borders for their education due to the quality and availability of programs. The approach to higher education and the value placed on learning are shared, and students often find themselves in very similar academic environments, regardless of which country they're in. Politics also draws clear parallels. Both Canada and the United States are democratic nations, where the people have a voice in electing their leaders. Both have political parties, national elections, and a system of checks and balances. The differences mainly lie in the structure of government. The US is a republic, and Canada is a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary system. but both nations are heavily influenced by democratic values, freedom of speech, the right to vote, and the importance of citizen participation in governance. In terms of institutions, both countries have similar structures when it comes to healthcare, law enforcement, and civil rights. They both share systems of law based on British common law, though Canada's legal system includes the influence of French civil law, particularly in Quebec. Still, when it comes to protecting individual freedoms, promoting economic growth, and ensuring the welfare of their citizens, both nations follow remarkably similar approaches. Despite their unique histories and differences, these shared institutions create an environment where both countries operate under the same general ideals, building mutual respect and understanding, as well as a sense of familiarity across borders. Number 8. Media narratives and identity blending. Media plays a huge role in how people from both Canada and the United States view themselves and each other. Over the years, the narratives built through movies, TV shows, news, and social media have blurred the lines between these two countries in a way that makes them seem almost interchangeable to outsiders. The American entertainment industry, particularly Hollywood, has dominated the global media landscape for decades. Canadians are often depicted in American movies and TV shows, but the portrayals are not always specific to Canada. Instead, Canadians are often shown as Americans with a twist, or sometimes their Canadian identity is only subtly acknowledged. This kind of media representation contributes to the idea that Canadians are just like Americans, but with minor differences, like a slightly different accent or a love for maple syrup. But it's not just Hollywood that has shaped this blending of identities. The rise of social media, streaming platforms, and global news outlets has made it easier for people in both countries to consume the same content, follow the same trends, and discuss the same issues. Canadians watch American television and movies, and Americans watch Canadian content too, especially in areas like music and comedy. Artists like Drake, Celine Dion, and The Weeknd have become household names across both countries, and this kind of shared cultural experience helps create a sense of unity. News outlets on both sides of the border also shape the identities of both nations. Many Americans and Canadians watch each other's news programs, sometimes without even realizing how much influence the media has on their perspectives. Whether it's political news, sports, or cultural events, people across the border share similar views on a lot of issues. While the politics of each country may differ, the way news is presented and consumed is often quite similar, leading to a shared understanding of global events. Identity blending goes beyond the media. In many ways, Canadians are influenced by American culture and vice versa. When people think of American or Canadian culture, they often picture similar things: a love for sports, outdoor activities, and a general attitude of friendliness. The lines between the two are often so blurred that it becomes difficult to determine where one identity ends and the other begins. So when we talk about Canadians and Americans being so much alike, we're not just talking about language, geography, or history. We're also talking about how the constant exposure to each other's media and entertainment has shaped the way both nations think, live, and even identify themselves. At the end of the day, the reason Canadians and Americans are so alike comes down to a simple truth. They've shared so much of their history, culture, and daily life over the years that they've woven their identities together in a unique way. From their shared colonial roots, geographic proximity, and economic connections, to the entertainment and media that shape their minds, these two countries continue to reflect each other in more ways than one. So, what do you think makes Canada and the United States so similar? Is there a specific cultural trait or habit that stands out to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. If you found this video interesting and want to dive deeper into the cultural connections between Canada and the US, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss out on our next exploration of how nations influence one another. Let's learn together. See you next time.